Triple Shot Mindset.
Just talk.
Okay. Here's my thing. It is about talking. It's about when do words go from helpful to harmful?
Mm-hmm.
And I asked this question because you ever heard of the love languages?
Yeah.
Okay. Last time I checked, I had 2 tied for top. Actually, that's not exactly accurate. But for the purpose of this story, we're going to say the number 1 was words of affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
Because it has been for most of my life, and it's still in the top 3.
Mm-hmm.
Words of affirmation means, for those who don't know, Amanda, you're so great. Your hair is so pretty. You're so kind. You're a hard worker. You're, smart and shit.
Mm.
That stuff.
Smart ass shit or smart and shit?
Both.
Okay.
Those compliments and positive words, a letter, a text, not huge on phone calls, but that's probably a millennial problem. Words mean everything to me, but that's a double-edged sword because little jabs can destroy my whole day, can be day ruining. And when I was younger, this was pretty rough because the Latin side of my family was big into teasing or just making comments in general. So that was something I had to grow up kind of putting a wall up against, like all the jabs or the little sarcastic comments or things that weren't even meant to be mean, but just felt not great to receive. So, and later I became a wordsmith, a writer.
When? Lately? Or?
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet, but we're hoping. I like to write a lot on my free time, poetry, articles.
I wish you would write on
books.
your pay tank.
Yeah, I know. We're getting there. Thanks for keeping me on, even though I don't do anything.
Wow.
So I'm all about the written word and the spoken word, and there's a piece of chocolate under that pillow.
I know. I'm saving it for later.
Just eat it. It's going to have more molecules of what?
It's
What does
going
it
to
matter?
sink into the cushion. Like,
No, it's not.
okay.
No, it's not.
All right.
It's not milk chocolate. It's not going to melt. It's the darkest you can
Are
find.
you even in the picture sitting that far away from me?
When I eat
yeah.
this chocolate, it leaves like chocolate all over my fingers.
Okay, fine.
That's good chocolate.
Yeah.
It's good chocolate. By the way, is it Theo? Theo chocolate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say
Very good. Very good. 85% pure dark.
Sponsor us, Theo.
Yeah.
I was going to say, are they a sponsor the way you talk about them?
So words. When do they become helpful? When do they become hurtful? Am I too much? Well, don't answer that question. The way that I put so much emphasis on the things people say has led to all kinds of, it's been a gift and a curse. I've been seduced by people's words so many times and then the actions don't measure up. Romantics, poets, that's how they lead us astray. They tell you all the things. I got a box of love letters in my closet from someone I don't even talk to anymore.
Why don't you burn them?
I've thought about it.
I'm being serious.
No.
Why do you hang on to those things?
I don't know. I just can't bring myself to get rid of them. It seems so callous to be
I
like,
can do it for you.
I mean, if they were to disappear, I wouldn't mourn, but to go out of my way to destroy them, I don't know if I feel that level of, I must destroy. It's kind of still makes me smile. But I think I'm just curious as we have a podcast, this kind of seems relevant. Like, what value can words offer to the world, and when do we need to really back shit up with actions instead of the words?
Hey, I'm going to tell you one thing. I've noticed everybody now with a keyboard in front of them, with a microphone in front of them, with a phone in front of them, they like to talk. I don't think they're talking for the right purpose. They're talking to get attention, get noticed. In the old days, you would write, to his point, shows ago, people would do things for the right reason. They would want to come, create a relationship. They would write from their heart how they feel. And most of the time, I think in the old days, it was meant. What they said, they meant. Now it's a seduction thing. So unfortunately, I've seen the art of poetry go down. Writing, nobody really reads it anymore. But people listen to just hot air because it's easy. And you can say whatever you want. There's no accountability. In the old days, if you wrote a book, before we publish you, let's read where you went to school, what makes you a expert in this field. Let's go through this process before we actually publish you. Not anybody with a keyboard, write whatever blog you want. You don't have to back it up by anything. You don't have to, have any expertise. As long as you went to the annex over the weekend and got a little certificate or not, you feel you're an expert and you have to something to say, you'll say it. So unfortunate communication, writing, speaking, has lost its thing for me.
I think I agree with a few points you made, but I humbly disagree on a few things. First and foremost, I think when you have a platform, like 50 years ago, people didn't have podcasts, they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have any of that. And we only had to read and listen to people who went through a certain channel, right? They had to have education, they had to have, several things going for them, they had to have a publisher's name in their back pocket. That was the message that they could communicate to others because there were other people who didn't have the means to do it. Now, I think it's a better time because there's so many viewpoints, and I like to hear, like when I listen to Joe Rogan, yeah, he's not a published author when he started his podcast. He wasn't any of that, but the things that he talks about make sense to me. Now, I don't want to read necessarily like Dr. Laura Schletzinger's take on relationships, because that's kind of a subjectified, objectified kind of it's based in science, but the science of like the mind, like someone had to take certain, I'm not saying psychology or psychological things are subjective, objective, but someone's twist and someone's turn and interpretation of those can create, dozens and millions of listeners listening to that to do certain things based on someone's opinion. I think the more voices we have, the better. And it's up to us to, see which one of them makes sense to us, which one of them don't, which of them have objective truth to it, and which of them are just subjective, purely subjective. 50 years ago, you couldn't have a podcast and talk about UFOs. You couldn't have a radio show talk about UFOs only because the FCC or whatever, they say, oh, you can't talk about that topic. So I think it's better to have more voices, but you have to leave it up to the listener to see which one of these voices makes sense, which of them has roots in just subjective stuff, or some of them have like a mixture of both.
The FCC may have had more power back then, but people wrote books about them. We know lots of authors that appear on that, Ancient Aliens, that, they're old school. They've written books when our mom was a child. So they could still write stuff, but they had to have like something behind them more than just, today I feel like this, today I feel like saying that. They actually would do the research. I hear people talking out of their butts about subjects that they have no clue about, no real understanding.
Then you can change the channel. You can change the channel, you can turn the page, you can put the book back where it belongs. But
I think we're talking about the quality of communication, the written word. I think it's diminished in terms of, because everybody, can say something.
It's gotten drowned out. It hasn't gotten diminished because the same people who go to school, who go to certain things and have experience and they write a book, it's still on the bookshelf. They haven't like swapped out the good ones for the bad ones. It just has gotten drowned out.
We have more voices now.
More voices. So before, if you go to a library, they have like, I'm just making this shit up, by the way.
Yeah.
If they had 100,000 books and all 100,000 were like by good authors, now they have 1 million books, and those 100,000 are just 10% of the equation.
So now we have more voices, which requires that we have more discernment. And what I want to know is, so then how do you discern what's worth listening to? How do you discern? And we took this into a really societal point of view, which I love because we're always analyzing society. But I'm concerned with it more on an interpersonal level because I'm the type of person who can get suckered by sweet words, really. And because, especially because people can feel very genuine when they're saying nice things. Like you can even read their energy and they're like 100% genuine and authentic. You're like, oh man. And then 2 hours later, the energy's totally changed and they're off on the next thing. And you're like, But you were so real when you were just telling me
Yeah, that sucks.
how great I was. Yeah. So it's like, how do we take this into an interpersonal level, and how do you discern? Because I understand what you're saying globally. Like, you listen to a podcast, I don't like it. They're not qualified. For you, you want quality. So they're not qualified. I'm not listening. I'm going to an expert who has education. For you, you like shock value and what's different, what's novel, what's new. So you're going to want to hear good stuff.
So I'm writing a book. You're writing a book, right?
Yes, yes.
What makes me an expert on relationships? It doesn't. Like, just because I've gone out on 20 dates and went through a divorce doesn't make me an expert in anything. But it's my voice, it's my experience that I want to talk about. Now, if it was the olden days and someone would say, well, you need to have a Oxford degree or Harvard degree in order to write a book, I would say, well, fuck that. Because what makes someone who has formal education better than me?
The difference is as follows. You are telling your story only. You're not telling people how to live. Today, I feel people become, for example, I have a cousin, hope you're not listening. He became a life coach over the weekend. Now he's telling people how to live their lives. I'm saying, dude, Saturday and 2 hours on Sunday does not qualify you to give people life advice. You can write about you and let people interpret that as they wish. But I feel like people cannot just get out there and say, oh, okay, this is a path you need to follow to become a millionaire. This is a path you need to follow to become this, because you haven't done it yourself.
Well, that's a different thing than giving. To me, if someone comes up with life advice or they want to, like, that's to them, that's their subjective. That's from their upbringing to what they went through or what they didn't go through. That's what they're qualified to give advice on. And if someone wants to peg their entire livelihood on a 28-year-old's advice, then that's their problem. Like, I'm not gonna listen to only one talking head who doesn't have the qualifications and make that my roadmap to my life purpose. I'm going to listen to many different people, see where they're coming from, what kind of background they have. And sometimes someone says something that may not be a published author beforehand. It may be their first book or maybe the first conversation I'm having with them. But if they have something brilliant to say that kind of like, I never thought of it about that in that particular way, then that's going to be interesting to me. So I'm not going to take someone's word. Like, I'm not going to read a Tony Robbins book and say, oh, this is my Bible to life supremacy. I'm obviously going to take his teachings into consideration with 100 other things and make my own decisions.
Now, on a personal level, what she was talking about versus societal perspective, to answer your question, in my opinion, you can't decipher. In the heat of the moment, somebody's being sweet to you, saying all the right things.
Was before or after sex?
Before,
obviously.
That's it.
way before.
So you got to take that into account. It's before sex, so they're going to say anything.
What's the difference?
One of them, like, if as I was
And it
talking
doesn't have
about,
to just be romantic
okay,
interest either.
the previous talk I had,
Yes,
podcast,
go listen to our last episode.
I was talking about being real with people, right? I think in the beginning, like in any relationship, in a business relationship, if I meet someone at a networking event, I'm gonna say, of course we can do that. Oh, you'll be my priority, right? And I intend to keep that up. But as real life happens and other clients come in and other problems start, accumulating, I'm going to maybe lose my promise to that person that you're going to be my top priority. I say we have to be authentic with ourselves. If I go to a networking event, I'm not going to say, sir, you're going to be my top priority. Right? I can't say that. I can say you're the most beautiful woman I've seen. Like, come on. Like, that's coming from either need or testosterone or whatever.
Unless it is a most beautiful woman you've ever met.
But then in
It's
an
so
hour you might
subjective.
see a more beautiful woman.
Right. It
It
could
will
be
no longer be
subjective.
true.
So my thing would be just be authentic. Don't try to like create something out of nothing. Like, if I were to give you a compliment, I would kind of think about it in my head a few times. Okay, this morning she looks like crap. Next day she looks good. I'm going to say, hey, you have beautiful eyes. I'm going to say, you have the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen in my life. Because that's going to, like, the bar is going to be now here.
Yeah.
And then if I'm real the next morning, it's going to be a huge difference.
If you've known this guy for a while, by while I don't mean a weekend, but you've known him for, a year or two, and he comes to you saying, you know what, you're the most amazing person I've known. I'm telling you this because, I was too shy before. And you can judge by how he's acted around you, how he's treated you, that yes, he is backing it up
without needing anything.
Yeah, then trust what they say.
So
but
substance.
If you just met them, the guy was fixing your garbage disposal, and you're like, oh my God, you're the answer to all my prayers, and he tells you got beautiful eyes.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Don't buy it.
And I used compliments, which was a mistake. It's not just compliments. People say things all the time that I think have seeds in them. I think
such as. Give me an example.
I'm trying to think of a non-romantic example. Like when someone tells you, and it's tough because compliments are the easiest way to manipulate someone.
Yeah.
But I feel like we use words to manipulate all the time. And I'm thinking of people I know and family members and friends.
And bosses.
But...
Is it boss or buy?
Oh, it's a great question. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like specific phrasing. I suppose what you could say is if someone conveys information to you that you get a good feeling from. For me, I get a good feeling from random information, or even people sharing stories, wanting to share about their lives. This is something we do in this office all the time. You guys know pretty much every detail of my life, and I know like a small percentage of yours.
Yeah, okay.
That's like a good feeling. You're like, oh, we're sharing information, we're connecting, we're communicating. For me as a words person, this is huge. So I trust that. But and because of the dynamic that we have and the evidence that I have of who you are and who I know you to be, I think that's a safe thing to trust. But if you're building a new relationship, or you're getting to know somebody, or you on the dating scene are trying to suss out somebody's character, you said in the last episode, they bust out their list of 50 non-negotiables. That's all words. So how do you get beyond that to the substance of the character? I know you're saying show up as authentic, and you're saying look at the evidence of who they are as a person.
I think the longer I know someone, like this woman on a dating app or women on dating apps or whatever, if we decide not to be romantically involved and take it easy and start as friends first, it gives me the chance to see who they really are, just like you have a chance to see who we are in the past year and a half. So it makes me and my compliments and my words to them much more stronger and much more specific and correct after 3 months of knowing someone, to say, hey, you're a great mom, for example, because I've seen
That's what I just said. I said, if you've known this person for a long time,
holds more weight.
Same thing. So I think compliments in the beginning are just your way to manipulate someone to like you or like to give you attention. But I think if you put the needs secondary and go in as an authentic person and give it time, I think those words mean more to me. Like if someone that I've known for 6 months says you're such a great dad, it makes me feel much better about my parenthood than if they say in the first date or second date.
Yeah.
Or they said you have such a great character. I know they're not just saying it on the first date because you've
How
known
could
me
you
for
know
3
that?
hours.
Yeah.
Like you have such a great character. Like girl told me you have such a great character. I'm like,
and by the way, same go with zingers. If you hear a zinger from a person the first couple times you meet them, there's something really wrong going on. But if you've known them and the zinger happens to be just like a joke, but you know they're a good person.
I think zingers, though.
Define zingers for our audience.
Okay, I'll tell you what a zinger is. But in a sense that, for example, we joke around in this office. Like I'm like, oh, you're sleeping again, or why did we pay you? Like you're always sleeping. It has nothing malicious behind
really?
it.
Because I thought we had those meetings on Sunday night.
Dude. For legal purposes, I need to say the good things. They don't have any malicious intent other than to be funny.
Yes, teasing.
But if you hear somebody say it on the first date, like, oh,
why do you smell like that?
Your hair, you know what? I normally hate blondes, but you're blonde. I'll accept it this time. Then it becomes, wait, what? Are you just joking? Is this a joke, or do you really mean it?
Yeah.
I think there's a difference between jokes and zingers versus sarcastic comments. Okay, because sarcasm is the angry cousin of whatever, like low self-esteem, all that stuff, right? It's a cousin of narcissist behavior. So someone who comes out and throws out those kind of comments, I think it's coming from a place of insecurity, from a place of anger, from a place of lack, all those things. And the receiver can say, oh, he's just joking. Oh, he didn't mean like that, right? Because now they need them to fill the void that they have and vice versa. For us, when we do jokes, I don't think I'm lacking anything. You're not lacking anything. And those jokes as friends can be jokes as friends, and we both laugh about it. In a relationship, if someone's constantly doing zingers, aka just name, what was it?
Zingers or sarcastic comments?
I mean, zingers are also sarcasm. In a relationship, to me, if I have a romantic relationship and someone keeps throwing up sarcasm and zingers, there's a deeper issue.
Mm-hmm.
There's a deeper issue, and that has been unresolved, that we just, kind of go over it. Oh, that's okay. She didn't mean it like that. She didn't mean it. It gets to a point that those things become the basis of you getting a divorce. Because those things are not based in friendship, they're based in a relationship.
Go ahead, man.
As the only divorced person in this room, I feel that I must ask this question. And I genuinely don't know the answer, which is shocking. Because I know 5% of your life.
At least.
In your marriage, were there zingers being thrown about?
Yeah. In every marriage that has failed, that's unhappy, there's zingers. Right? My parents, zingers. My aunt and uncles, zingers. Everyone I know, for exception of one couple up in Orinda, California, everyone else has zingers. And that is my inability to express myself without fear to the other person, express my concerns or likes or dislikes. So it becomes a zinger. It becomes one of those things.
Microaggression.
And yeah, just like little things to get it off my chest, but not enough to create a wave. So for me, yes, there were zingers. She had zingers towards me, I had zingers towards her. But because we were in a loving, quote unquote, relationship and friendship, we let it go. But if I would have opened up my eyes and my ears about those zingers, I would have said, let's sit down and talk about it. Why do you keep saying certain things every 6 months when we're with my mom, for example? Why do I keep saying certain things about you when you're making pasta, right? Let's sit down and discuss those and to get to the bottom of it, because it shouldn't be a right kind of environment for us to throw zingers. And once you have kids, they start learning that this is a passive-aggressive kind of behavior. If you don't like something and you're too afraid to, create waves, you say something under your breath to, get off your chest, but not enough for the other person to get angry at you about. So I think it's very passive-aggressive, cowardly kind of a way to communicate.
Yeah. It's very, passive-aggressive.
So my thing is, zingers are, as friends, we should be able to tell you certain things. It's a joke, a joke and a zinger is two different things. And sarcasm is, I think, the worst case of joking, because I've known guys who are dating a woman that I know, and they come out and tell me, man, women drivers, fuck, right? Or, man, look at her, she doesn't even know how to drive.
About the women that you know.
About the women I know. And
in front of the women that you know?
No, behind their back, to me.
Huh.
So when I approach my friend and say, hey, this is what your date is saying behind your back, some women have the strength to say, you know what, that sucks. I'm going to have a talk with them. I'm going to actually break it off, because that's, the tip of the iceberg. The rest of the anger and the rest of the resentment is still brewing under the surface. And some people say, that was just a joke. I talked to him and he said that's a joke.
Don't you love the part, hey, I talked to him and said he'll change?
Yeah, that's the first sign that you are lowering your standards, right? You're willing to tolerate certain things, because now you tolerate this. Now you tolerate him, saying something bad to one of your friends, something inappropriate. Oh, he was just joking. All these tolerate things, you tolerate, and you find yourself, you're like, who am I? Who was this person that had all these high standards, and I'm going to tolerate for this? And that becomes your life. So, to your point, when someone gives you a compliment or says something, I think you have to weigh it against who this person is, how long you've known them, what their intent is. And if their intent is need or greed or anything that you can provide for them that they can't provide for themselves, then that is probably coming from a place of anger.
Yeah. Yep. So that, upon reflection, answers a lot of questions about people I know and have known. What about family who you've known forever?
I think
Like an uncle or
Brother?
no, I think
uncle,
those are just
mother? Like what? Because I'm very close with, I'd say, pretty much all of my immediate family. Either extremely close to or just close to. And I weigh what they say. Sometimes I let it influence me too much. And sometimes I brush it off. And I basically go by, depending on the topic of conversation, would I trade my life for theirs on this topic? Yes or no? If it's a no, then I'll take what you said. I'll consider it, but I'm probably not going to go with it. If it's a yes, then
give me
let me go for it. One of my brothers gives me advice. And he has, in 2 relationships, been the person who's pulled me aside and said, I think you should reconsider this person.
Smart brother.
And I've been like, yeah, even though one of them he was the main proponent for. So that's an actually perfect example. For one of the relationships, he was like, do it. And then when he decided he didn't like it anymore, he was like, okay, out.
He didn't decide he didn't like it anymore. He saw signs that maybe you were not.
In the beginning, everyone's rosy and everyone's great.
I think the reason your brother pushed you was, hey, on surface, this person looks great. Maybe it'll be a great match. But once he saw the signs that maybe you're too blind to see, in a good way.
No, and I appreciate him for it.
Right. He will point out things to you. And so listening to people who love you.
Wait. Can I just finish that sentence real quick and just add a little bit more context?
Absolutely.
I think it's easy to be the armchair quarterback is what I was going to say about family, which is my concern. Because a family member can sit back and say, do it. And then when they're not involved in the situation and don't understand the emotional duress or requirements that are required to rectify the situation, it's also easy to say, okay, press undo now.
Right.
I've seen some
it's
things.
not easy. It's not easy to, it's very uninvolved to be able to call out plays and you're not experiencing the emotions yourself.
Exactly.
You think it's easy.
But
it's
they
not
can't
easy.
see it clearly. If he can't see certain things clearly about my dating life, or I can't see certain things about his married life from another perspective, he may be too blind to see certain things in his, and I may be too blinded by love and lust.
See, some people like me, I appreciate perspectives because I get to think. Some people don't appreciate perspectives. They can call you, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh, shut up, you're jealous, whatever. But I think you have to be in a position to be open-minded. Whoever tells you information, don't just say, okay, yes, sir, I'll do it. Make it be part of that recipe of your life to take it into consideration. At the very least, just think about it. Say, oh, you know what? You don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Well, we go back to the person I know that the date said certain things, right? I said, if you're smart.
Can we give some names to these people?
No. If you're smart, right? If you have certain values, if you have certain stances and, all those things that you're not going to tolerate and your non-negotiables, if someone gives you that piece of information, right? I know in my brain that, why is that person like that? Why did he say that? In my heart, say, well, I'm going to make it work. And 99% of the time, when you just want to make it work from here, which is a need, and you don't give it much thought, I think it's bound to fall apart eventually. I think the best relationships are the ones that are easy. Like you don't have to put up a front. My ex-wife and I were talking about this on the ride back home yesterday, that when her and I were dating, it was easy. We were able to communicate our needs and wants and dislikes and displeasures with each other without getting offended or defensive. And when my mom would, for example, look at us and say, did you see what she did? I would actually go let her know. I would say, hey, by the way, Nona, my mom said this, right? Is there any truth to that? And have her tell me the reason why she did certain things. So, yep, I did that because or I was in pain or I had my menstrual cycle, whatever. At least I know there's a reason. If someone comes to me and says, the girl you're dating, you're in love with, did this, and by the way, someone told me something about a girl that I'm dating, I'll tell you guys later, it makes this overtake the rest of my feelings.
I think when you're young and impressionable, you 100% go with this. As you become older, you will find value in all the advice that everybody gives you because now you're thinking with up here.
But you can't deny advice. You can't like say, nope, that's not how this person was. That's how that person. You can double down on it. It won't go away. It will eventually come up. So take people's advice. Know that they're coming from a good place. Like if your parents give you advice, they're coming from a good place. They may not be in a certain situation that you're in, but they see the 30,000 foot view and they give you advice, and you have to consider that. Don't let your emotions override that.
So in the example that you used, you said that your mother would tell you things about your ex-wife, and then you would go and talk to your ex-wife, and if she gave you a reason, you'd make peace with it. How
I
is
didn't
that?
make peace with it. I would understand why it happened.
Got it. How is that different than the friend that you were citing who you brought up something about the person they're dating?
Because to me, that is a character flaw. The things that maybe my ex-wife did or didn't do, it wasn't a character flaw per se. It was maybe I don't know, like something that her side of the family think is okay to do, or my side of the family
Misunderstand.
Like, I mean, we come from different families. We have different traditions. We have different, ways we talk to each other or whatever. But if a man comes and tells a woman friend of mine, or it tells me behind her back, all women, right? That's a generalized statement. That's negative.
If she comes from a culture, though, where it's normal to talk about women like that, or that was like a family norm,
But if
she might be willing to let it slide a little bit.
it is, but that's what got her in trouble the first time around with her first husband, because those red flags were there and she decided to.
But like any parent, don't you feel like you can tell her that once and just let her go? And, if she will take the advice, great. If not, she will learn eventually, but not be in a position to have to repeat the same advice. Because you know what? Sometimes people have to experience things on their own.
They can learn certain things, but as an informant, like as a spy for her, if I see something that shows me the character of this person after 45 years of being on this earth, this is his characteristic. This is the tip of the iceberg of all these red flags that are popping up. And she says, well, I just talked to him and he said he didn't mean it. That's different than my, like let's say my ex-wife didn't eat at my mom's house because she had cramps, right? I say, hey, my mom said you didn't eat. Like, are you mad at her? No, I had cramps.
I think on a 30,000 foot view, which you were talking about, whatever details are down here, if you communicate properly, you say your piece, your perspective you shared with the other person, you just leave it at that. I know there's so many exceptions to everything, but at the end of the day, like she said, if her parents tell her something, you have to think about it. If the parent tells her the same thing 50 times in the course of a month, she's going to say, shut the heck up. I don't want to listen to you anymore. You give your wisdom once, and you just let it ride. The person has to choose. Am I going to take advice? Or am I not going to take advice? Am I going to consider it or not? So I think at the end, you just give advice, hear your parents' advice, or hear your brother's advice. Let it sink in. And at the end, if you want to take it, great. If not, it's your life. You'll learn a different way.
No. Yes, I mean, half of what he said, I 100% agree with. I just think as a parent or as a friend, I need to have those difficult conversations with my kid or with my friends, right? No matter how many times I gotta tell them, even if it means them not want to be friends with me. Because some things are, like, I care more about their well-being than me having a friend or me having, some brownie points on my chart. I don't want to be that person. So I think before my divorce, I want to be the one who was like, oh, it's okay, let's sweep it under the rug. Whatever you want to do, you do it. Because I needed just validation and friends and whatever. But now I don't care. Like, if I have to tell you 200 times that your boyfriend is bad for you because he did these, and I'm going to bring up more examples, it's because I'm trying to warn you about future heartache.
At what point do you think, just devil's advocate, do you think that somebody's going to think to themselves, shut the fuck up? I've heard you say this 100 times. It's my life.
I'm not going to repeat the same thing 100 times. I'm going to report to her things I see along the line. if I say, he picks his nose, I'm going to say, by the way, he picks his nose every day. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say, oh, today he picked his nose. 6 months from now, I'm like, oh, by the way, he kicked a puppy to the curb.
Going back to your initial point, I will listen to my parents and family up here the most.
Yeah,
what they say is most important.
Yeah.
And I'll listen and I believe. Middle is friends, normal friends.
Yeah.
People you haven't known that long, still under a year, it's a new thing. You will tell them a couple of times, okay, good enough. Or you hear from them, thank you for telling me. Down here is people you just meet. I don't trust them one bit. They can say whatever the fuck they want to. I don't trust anything you say because you have no history. Therefore, you have no value at that point.
Yeah, I'd be the opposite. I'd have friends first and then family. And my brother can be my friend. Like, I would give him more than, he's a combination of friend and family, so I put him up here. But I think a family is trying to protect, like at least my mom tries to protect me to a point that like she's built this fortress around me and like, do not do anything that's going to hurt you. Don't do anything. Don't experience life because I was hurt. She's trying to pass on the trauma from generations past on to me. So therefore her advice, as much as I like to hear it, I don't know if it's based on protecting me or it's for my betterment of my future. Like I know it's for a betterment of my future. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes she says things that I'm like, all right, thank you. But I want to hear from a real friend who wants to see the different outcomes. Like what is it I should do with this girl? Not just, oh, dump her. She's not good for you. You're royalty. You should not go out with women like that. I want someone to hear me out. Yeah, an ounce of protection is good, but also I want them to empower me.
Is that in a way wanting to hear what you want to hear versus what your mom loves you most in this world?
No, I think empowering means more to me than protection. Yeah.
So it's like everyone in your life is an archetype of something. They represent an objective. And for family, maybe it's to protect the family and the family name, which involves protecting the person, of course. But maybe that means they're going to advise you in the way that they would carry things out, which may or may not always be the best. That's why I said sometimes to listen to people who you wouldn't trade lives with can be a tricky thing. Although I actually find some people, even if they've screwed up their life royally in a certain area, can still give good advice. So it's nuanced. But if everyone's an archetype, then I suppose you look at the person and you see where they rank in your life and what they've given to you and how they live their own life and what their values are. But you would always check back in with your heart, right?
Yeah, I would. I would check in with my heart, but with my head also. I think head should take precedence over heart many times.
And you, Kevin?
I think the bonds that have been gifted to us, aka mother, brother, father, kids, those are the most precious. To me, I give every weight to that because I know there's not a single ounce of I want bad for you.
Yeah.
So to me, the value of with my heart listening to my family, I get it. Whatever they say, it's felt here because it comes from a place of love and wanting me to succeed. So that's why I put family first. People that are not blood related to me, I will never know them 100%. I will never know their intention 100%. I will know them 99%, but not 100. Sometimes people talk to each other and they will give advice because they just had a breakup and they want to see the other person break up too.
Yeah.
Because they want company. So I know, but like your family will never do that. Your family will encourage you. So, I guess we're just made differently.
Yeah.
I know because I am not so shakeable that if my mom, for example, tells me do this, for me to say, yes, mother, dear, I'll say, okay, good advice. Let me see why. And if I make a decision that matches with her, great. If it doesn't, okay, so be it. But I will not immediately say, no, because she's my mom, she's trying to protect me, therefore she's not a good source of advice. Because her advice is golden. You can choose free will to take it or not take it. That's all. But I know she will give the good advice regardless.
So I don't think basing it on blood versus no blood is the best way for me because I want to see what experiences they've had or what experience they haven't had in certain topics, right? If I want to talk about relationships that my dad who divorced my mom, had a second marriage, divorced her, and now is like, kind of upset about the whole thing. If he said, let me give you advice over a psychologist's advice, I might say, sorry, Dad, you do not qualify to give me advice. You may give me heartwarming things about, oh, you're such a wonderful son, you're such a great man, you should strive for the best. Thank you. That's all I want in that context. But I don't want him to say, in my opinion, women are this, you should not do this. Sorry, Dad, you have had your chance in life to deal with women and it failed. And therefore, I'm not going to take that kind of advice from you. My mom, on the other hand, yes, I give more weight to her things, but I know her advice comes from being someone who's dealt with a divorce for the past 40 years. She still has resentment. She still has trust issues. So I cannot have the same conversation about a relationship with someone who has trust issues about the opposite sex, or about people's intentions, or they could hurt you, they could hurt your kid. Like all that stuff, I understand where she's coming from, but that's not going to be empowering to me. I'll hear what she has to say, but I'm not going to base my decision on her, because I know, again, in certain instances, she didn't live the life that she could have. She's still holding on to trauma. She's still holding on to grief and anger and all those things. So hearing advice from...
I was going to interject saying, friends could have the exact same background as your mother.
So I said DNA doesn't have anything to do with it, right? If my aunt, for example, has a successful marriage and she wants to give me advice, I'll listen to her over my dad, because so whether or not you have shared DNA or not doesn't matter to me. Like, she could have the best intentions for me and it gives me better advice than my own mom.
In most cases, they want the best for you. Always.
But not all parents.
I'm not saying all. I'm just saying we're blessed to have parents that are wonderful and they want the best for us. Therefore, I will listen to them. And their advice, actually, like I said, you can decipher that in your mind, saying, okay, well, you don't really know about this subject because you didn't really have a great marriage yourself. However, some of the points they say, it's gold.
Some of the points they say, I'm sure it's gold, and I do recognize those.
But you did mention that I might rather take advice from my friends.
No, I said DNA doesn't have anything to do with it. I didn't say friends come.
You said friends here?
Well,
family here.
Yeah, because friends look at, like, I've shared everything with my friends. Like, she knows the good and the bad. I only share the good with mom because I know if I share the bad with her, she's going to have a heart attack. She's going to go, that was you went on a date with someone who did that?
See, the thing is, I share good and bad with my parents because I want to be honest.
Yeah.
This is who I am.
So they're your friends.
They're my friends. Yeah.
I don't, because I see the look. Like, I shared something with my mom about a girl I went out with, and we've named a coffee maker after her, right? so I shared a piece of story with my mom, right? It was on the negative side. It was on the, and for the next week, every time I went to her house, like, she looked like there's something bothering her. Like, it was weighing heavy on her, and it made the energy of the house like negative and down. I'm like, Mom, like, is everything okay? She's like, yeah. Last week when you told me about that person, it really, like, I've been thinking about, I can't sleep at night. My blood pressure's through the roof. I'm like, Mom, like, God, like, I moved on.
Yeah.
I moved on. She is still upset about my divorce. He's still upset about my divorce. My dad's still upset. And the person who is not is me, right? So me sharing the good and the bad is a double-edged sword. If I share it with my friends, they don't have that emotional attachment or that family attachment to, like, take it personally. They will hear the good, the bad, and give it to me like it is. My mom will just put so much weight on the negative things I've told her that will become her reason why I should not go back with this woman. That becomes a reason why I should avoid dating. That becomes her reason why I should not introduce my kids to my new... Like, it goes down this whole rabbit hole of protecting me and, let me just, cuddle you and protect you from the world. Don't date anyone. Like, to me, that it is love. But when you, like, interject or, like, put in your own issues and traumas and fears and negative thoughts onto a situation, it's not going to help me now. to this day, like, and I told my mom, I told my dad, I told my brother, I said, I'm still friends with my ex. I love her as a friend, and I'm not upset at what happened. I'm over that. The first 3 months I was upset. I was angry. I was like hurt. I was all that, but I'm no longer that. But because I've told my family and they care about me, they've still held on to that first 3 months of me being upset and angry, that everything else is overshadowed. Like, hey, mom, me and my ex and the kids are going to go to Costco. Do you need anything? You're going to go with your ex? Like, so to me, telling my family everything is not necessarily the best thing because they have a personal attachment to my outcome. Friends, they love me for who I am. They've seen me in my bad and my worst and my best. And then they're going to take all the information and give it to me straight.
So in the end, we've got to choose the people who the substance is backed up.
Yeah.
And that might be friends and that might be family.
Yeah.
But it's, I guess for every individual, you've got to figure that out for yourself.
Yeah, you got to see who's the overly protective one and just give them the good. Who's the not overly protective one and give them the bad. And then find someone in between who can hear both sides of the story and look at you without any, preconceived notions and can give you the facts. Like if you tell me about your relationship issues or career issues or whatever, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to have an agenda to push for certain things. I'm going to say, well, you're a great writer, but you should follow your calling to become a stripper.
Yes.
But your dad would never tell you that.
Well, actually,
I think honesty between parents and their kids, I think is key. Like I'm honest with my mom. I'll give her the good, the bad, the ugly. And whatever advice she says, it just becomes like, okay, more information for me to consider.
Yeah.
So unlike him that hides stuff, because I always tell my mom, I'm going to tell you something bad. You may not like it, but please don't lose sleep over it. I'm telling because I wanted to judge and be a good judge. Give me the right advice. And she'll often say, okay. Yeah, she'll take it to heart. But at least I'm giving her all the information and getting a perspective from somebody that loves me unconditionally. So yeah. I think that's my thing.
I've chosen to be friends with my parents too. I remember a time when I did only tell them the good. And then there was a time where I told them nothing. And then later, as I got older and more mature and they developed a healthy amount of respect for me and I learned to respect them more, now we're like homies. I go to hang out with my parents. Like I take them out on dates so I can hang out with them and tell them all my stuff. So
do you flash gang signs like because you're homies?
Well, homies, yeah, that's exactly why I did that. So I guess it depends on the quality of the relationship. Also, what are we bringing to the relationship as individuals? How honest we're willing to be and how transparent and confident we're willing to be. Like you let your mom know right up front, this is going to be bad. You're not going to like it, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to bring you into the loop. Your presentation is probably radically different than yours, based on what I know about you two. The way you probably individually interact with your mom is worlds different. So I'm not surprised it's a different dynamic in the relationship, but that's super valuable. I hope the listeners and the viewers take this away, which is who you are depends on how your relationships are going to be. And there's a lot of value in looking at the substance of the relationships that you have and determining what those archetypes are in your life for. And then just bring the authenticity. Triple Shot Mindset.